Good day, ladies and gents. Today we'll be looking at financial management's investment decisions. So remember, there are investment decisions and then there are finance decisions. So today we'll be looking at the financing side of things. So basically with financing decisions, what you must remember is that we must use the after-tax cost of debt as our I. So with financing decisions, we will not use the WACC as our I. You will instead use the after-tax cost of debt. So remember, with financing decisions, we'll be calculating the NPC and not the NPV as we do when we're doing the investment decisions. So let's take a look at, so basically with financing decisions, we'll basically be looking at two main things. It will either be leases or a loan. So we'll be looking at what's the difference between when you lease and when you loan. So let's get into it. Let's start with the lease. So when you're doing financing decisions, usually you will have to, with such how they like to examine these questions, that they'll either ask you to make a decision on whether it's better to lease or to loan. So let's look at their cash flows. So when you lease, you're gonna, in your cash flows, you're gonna include the payment of the lease, and you're gonna include the payment of the lease. You will also include maintenance costs, if any, in that lease. But with maintenance costs, sometimes they might say it's incurred by the lessor, which means will not incur any cost pertaining to that. But if it's incurred by us in the lease, we're gonna include it in our cash flows. Remember, the payments and the maintenance, they include them as like a deduction because it's cost that you'll incur when you enter into the lease. And with the lease and the loan, remember, at the beginning of in year zero, there'll be no, they'll basically you'll not incur any cost to enter into such things. Like you'll not incur any capital costs unless if maybe the question states otherwise. But usually there'll be no capital costs with such questions. And then there'll be tax. So with tax, remember, since these are costs we actually incur, the tax is usually gonna be to our benefit in a way. It's like the tax will help reduce those costs in our cash flows. So we'll get a deduction on the lease payments in terms of section 11A, because remember, in tax, we get a deduction for all the lease costs we incur pertaining to the lease, because we will be using the asset in production of the income. So we'll get a section 11A deduction on all lease installments or lease repayments that will incur in the business. That's why we get a deduction here on the lease payments we incurred above that we included in our cash flows. Then we'll also get a deduction on maintenance costs if we incur any maintenance costs, and we'll get this deduction in full. So here, that's the cost that will be pertaining to the lease. Then in terms of the loan, the cash flows, there'll be repayments of the loan. Will include a repayment of the loan in the cash flows, and there'll be tax. So remember, with the loan, we won't get a deduction in terms of the repayments of the loan, but we'll instead get a deduction in terms of the interest on the loan. We'll get an interest deduction on the loan in terms of section 24J, because remember, since we're gonna incur, basically we're gonna incur a loan, we're gonna go and obtain a loan in order to be able to produce income for the business, in production of income for the business. So in terms of section 24J in tax, it states that we can get interest deductions if the loan or the interest is incurred in production of income. That's why we're getting this deduction, because it would have incurred the loan in terms of production of income or carrying on of a trade. That's why we can get an interest deduction on the loan. Then we'll also get wear and tear, because we would have probably used the loan to acquire an asset, and we'll get wear and tear allowances on that asset. And also we'll include any recoupment or scrapping allowance pertaining to that asset if we end up disposing it and at the end of the lease term. So these are the things that will be included in the loan. And remember, when you compute your NPC, we always will always use the after-tax cost of debt for it. So that's how we do this. Then, based on whichever cost is lower, that would be the, let's say when you compare the two, whichever one yields the lowest cost, that will be the one we should choose. So that's how we compute these things. The one whichever yields the lowest cost or the lowest MPC, it will be the option which we should choose. So I hope that was helpful, guys. This video was very quick as compared to the investing decision ones, but these are the main concepts or principles or key concepts that I think you should know pertaining to such questions. So remember, when you do these questions, always look out for these main points here to know that you're actually on the right path. It will make it easier for you to break down the question, because you'll have to know that if I'm doing a lease question, what should I include in the cash flow? What should I look out for? What have they given me? If they are saying do a loan, you will also know that, okay, what do I have? What should I include? What should I look out for? So these are mainly trigger points that you should look out for. And sometimes they might give you a whack, a whack, like the whack, and they might give you the after-tax cost of debt, and you must know which one to choose in that. Or maybe the cost of debt is given, but it's not after tax. So you must know that it should be after tax. So basically with these, you should always keep this in mind, like at the back of your mind, that if you're doing such questions, what should be in there? Like, what should I include? What's missing? What are they trying to give me with this information? What are they trying to get me to do? So this is what you should always keep in mind when you're doing this. So this was just a few concepts that I used to help me when I was doing such questions, and I hope it will help you too. So this is the end of the video, guys. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the comments and we'll get back to you. Okay, thank you.